Mr. Deputy Chairman, sir, there has been a widespread expectation among the public and in the press regarding government statement on industrial policy. I had given an indication that this statement would be presented to Parliament before the end of the current session. I am therefore happy, sir, to be able to place on the table of the House the statement on industrial policy. While doing so, I would like to take the opportunity to refer to some of the main features of the statement. For the past 20 years, government policy in the sphere of industry has been governed This new approach should reflect not only our vast resources and special endowments but should show particular concern for the utilization of these resources and endowments for the amelioration of the living conditions of the majority of our people. The main thrust of the new industrial policy will be on effective promotion of cottage and small scale industries widely dispersed in rural areas and small towns. For this purpose, an exhaustive analysis of industrial products has been made to identify those items which are capable of being established or expanded in the small scale sector. the list of industries which would be exclusively reserved. The scam is basically a deliberate and criminal misuse of public funds through various types of securities transactions with the aim of illegally siphoning off funds of banks and PSUs to select brokers for speculative returns. The latest irregularities in the securities and banking transactions are manifestations of this chronic disorder since they involved not only the banks but also the stock market, financial institutions, public sector undertakings, the central bank of the country, and even the Ministry of Finance and other economic ministries in varying degrees. The most unfortunate aspect has been the emergence of a culture of non accountability which permeated all sections of government and banking systems over the years. The state of the country's system of governance, the persistence of non adherence to rules, regulations, and guidelines, the alarming decay over time, the banking systems has been fully exposed. These grave and numerous irregularities persisted for so long that eventually it was not the observance of regulations but their breach that came to be regarded and defended as market practice. Through all these years, the ability of the concerned authorities to effectively address themselves to the problems has been tested and found wanting. The consequences of the irregularities in securities and banking transactions are both financial and moral. During the period from July 2001 to May 2002, the most glaring proof of the nexus between the irregularities in banks and the overheating of stock market which came to light is explained by the graphic representations of the BSE index and the fact that there was a sharp increase in securities transactions during the corresponding period of the banks involved in serious irregularities related with the scam. What is more apparent is the systematic and deliberate abuse of the system by certain unscrupulous elements. It is abundantly clear that the scam was the result of failure to check irregularities in the banking system and also liberalization without adequate safeguards. There is also some evidence of collusion of big industrial houses playing an important role. It is because of these elements that the economy of the country had to suffer, and while some gained thousands of crores of investors lost their savings. The criminality of the perpetrators of the scam becomes all the more despicable as it was during this period that the country was passing through most trying times economically and financially. An observation that the committee has been constrained to make at a number of places in the succeeding chapters is that for all these, not many have yet been identified and effectively punished. The second aspect about which the committee expresses its grave concern is the supervisory role and responsibility. The supervision failed from top to bottom is both self-evident and is detailed in the report. Amongst all the witnesses that appeared before the committee seldom came across an instance where responsibility for wrong was forthrightly accepted. In the course of investigation, the committee found that most of the irregularities in securities transactions that took place in 1991 and 1992 had been indulged in by various banks even much earlier. Certain earlier inspection scrutiny reports of RBI called by the committee revealed various irregularities in securities transactions by various banks. It is thus evident that many of the irregularities in securities transactions that took place in 1991 and 1992 had been building up since the mid-80s, if not earlier, and could have been minimized if the authorities concerned had heeded to the early warning signals. The RBI issued several circulars, including the one in July 1991, prohibiting these misdeeds, and yet everything that was sought to be prevented, in fact, accelerated and assumed uncontrolled dimensions. A broad analysis of the information obtained by the committee from various sources reveals that apart from a direct flow of funds to the stock market through sanction of authorized or unauthorized credit facilities to some brokers by some banks by way of overdraft and discounting of bills covering shares and debentures, there had been fraudulent manipulations of the investment portfolio in some banks, including their subsidiary financial companies, to divert the funds to certain brokers to fuel the unprecedented rise in share prices. On the question of exposure, there are varying figures. Janaki Raman Committee speaks of this as Rs 4,000 crores, whereas Central Bureau of Investigation have assessed these at Rs 8,000 crores on the basis of cases registered by them. In addition, the committee examined the figure provided by the Office of the Custodian, which assessed the amount on the basis of various claims and counterclaims preferred by various aggrieved parties. The committee are of the opinion that it is difficult to estimate the huge sums of money which were illegally utilized by various scamsters for their personal gains during the period because the monies were repaid and the transactions completed. The monies lost represent the deals which could not be completed because either the monies were swindled or BRs and SGL transfer forms held by banks are of doubtful value. Further, because of imperfect contracts, it may not be possible to enforce the contract and recover money. The committee did not independently attempt this exercise as three separate specialist bodies had already attempted it. The committee are of the view that it is the duty of the Ministry of Finance to undertake the responsibility by either instituting a separate committee for the purpose or through the same committee. After examination of the type of transactions by the banks, the committee regret to note that the banks had, in blatant violation of the RBI guidelines relevant thereto, entered into a large number of buyback transactions and indulged in irregularities like misuse of BRs, bankers' checks, etc.